At St. Cloud State University, athletics are more than just games. They're an essential part of the Husky experience. From D1 hockey games to championship-winning wrestling, volleyball, and more, there's Husky pride in every corner of campus. Whether you're on the field, in the stands, or cheering from the student section, you're a part of something big. And the best part? SDSU is close to home, affordable, and packed with community that's got your back, in class and on the court. Come see what it means to be a Husky. Schedule your campus tour today at St. Cloud State University, the home of the Huskies.
For the Indians, one run on, let's see, one hit. That's all. We got one goddamn hit.
You can't say goddamn on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
From the Gateway Lounge in Sioux Falls, it's Nobody's Listening Anyway. Here are your hosts, John Gaskins and Matt Zimmer.
We're going to have to rename the show On the Road with Matt Zimmer. It's 2 weeks ago, the lake, last weekend, Lincoln. Family trip to the cities this weekend. You excited about this? Summertime.
Yeah.
We are.
Weather's been cooperating. That helps.
Yeah.
I had a fun time in Lincoln. Last year we took our family fun weekend trip to the cities in late July. So it was 90-some degrees.
Ew.
Well, we kind of wanted that, though. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to Valley Fair and
Okay.
being outside, you know.
Water
and-
park.
Right.
Yeah.
And this year, the only weekend we could make it work was early June, and I was kind of thinking, oh, cool, it'll probably be 58 degrees that day, and we'll all be bundled up. But no, it's going to be warm, and so, yeah, it'll be fun. Twins are playing terrible,
Yeah.
so you know, maybe Byron Buxton will hit for the cycle again like he did last year when we went.
That's right. I forgot about that. Weren't you? And you had really good seats. You were like 20 rows home plate, weren't you?
No. We were in the outfield.
Oh, okay.
But it was cool. It was Byron Buxton bobblehead day. And
Oh,
he
wow.
hit for the cycle, and Twins won. It was like 3 days before the big fire sale.
Yeah.
So, like, Willie Castro, Louis Varland, all those guys were still on the team, you know. Carlos Correa. So, yeah, we didn't know it was coming.
Yeah. I mean, are you excited to go to the Twins game or only because it's a Twins game? I mean, they're still kind of hanging around there.
Not really,
5
especially
games
with all the
under
injuries
500.
now, too. But,
Yeah, oh, my gosh, it's a laundry list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cut Simeon Woods Richardson, and the next day 2 more starters go down with injuries. I mean, it's kind of comical, but
AAA team almost.
Right.
Sporting it out there.
I'm not like boycotting the Twins like people are or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I'm watching the games on TV like always, but even, you know, we talked about going to a game back in April. It just didn't work out in our schedule, and now we're going here, and it'll probably be the only game we end up going to this year, but we'll see.
I'm always a proponent of just go to a game a year just
Right.
to get the experience.
It's a
There's nothing
beautiful
like it.
ballpark.
Yeah.
It's an amazing stadium.
Yeah.
15 years later, it's still great. I love taking Arthur. You know, there's something about, to this day, at 46 years old, there's still something about walking into the stadium, and when you first kind of get the glimpse of the field, of the bleachers, of the, you know, it's a little different at Target Field because you walk in at ground level. You know, I like the ones better where you kind of walk up and it reveals itself to you a little
Yes.
bit, but that's still kind of a magical thing. And when you have kids along, it's even more of a nostalgic kind of fun, awesome thing.
Right. And you feel okay with him being safe in downtown Minneapolis?
I do, yeah.
Is it going to be okay?
Yeah, there might be some.
Might be some security there, and
Yeah.
like you're not worried about open gunfire.
I'm not scared of brown people.
in the
so
middle
no,
of
that's-
downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Okay, I still every now and then will just hear casual conversations.
You're going to Minneapolis?
Sometimes on the
Yeah.
radio. I haven't been to downtown Minneapolis in years. I
Yeah.
never want to go there. Okay.
Good. Stay home.
How's Arthur's baseball? Like, is he playing still?
Yep. He's
Did we talk about this not too long ago? But you're scaling back on the travel team stuff.
we're not doing the travel team this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's playing just on a little league team, and he still has a blast. And how much fun he has isn't much impacted on whether they win or lose, or even how well he plays individually. So that's a good thing, I think.
Okay, good. All right. Well, the Jacks baseball team, your previous road trip for baseball in Lincoln, I'm tempted to just talk about Lincoln first because I bombarded you with
Yes, you did.
suggestions, trying to just living vicariously through you and Trent Singer because I didn't get to go, and go to a lot of the same
The place
stops
you
I
used to
go
live.
Yeah, right, yes. That was part of it. Like I was, if I could have, I would have. The Canaries weren't in town, and I kind of want to work all the games when you're, that's your job, is to be at the games. I didn't really want to take time off for that, but I would have been there. It would have been fun, and you wrote about it, you tweeted about it a lot. At the same time, I was kind of like, yeah, I did live there. I have been to Husker baseball games. I have been to all the restaurants, and I was there March 1st a few weeks ago for a basketball game. So as it turned out, I mean, as a Husker fan, I guess the South Dakota State game would have been fun on that Friday. It would not have been fun to be at any of the other two Husker games, and it really wasn't a fun day for Jackrabbit baseball on Saturday either. But
Yeah.
How do you put the trip in totality?
I was glad I went.
Yeah.
I kind of regretted not going to Lincoln when USD's softball team was there. I had some other obligations that were part of that reason, but this kind of felt like a second opportunity to do it. I've never been to an NCAA baseball or softball tournament, so I wanted to go. Kind of almost a bucket list sort of thing. I mean, I've been to the College World Series as a fan, but I've never gone and covered the tournament. I've never been to a regional or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, and it was fun. Like you mentioned, Trent was there. I didn't run into him, but my dad and his wife came. I got to hang out with them a little bit. They just bought tickets, drove down and back the same day. It was what I expected, I guess. The baseball was obviously very good. We talked about it was really fun that they got put in a region with 3 other big-time schools, that it wasn't whoever. That was fun, watching Ole Miss, watching Arizona State, seeing some pretty big names, some guys who are going to obviously be playing Major League Baseball before too long. Would have been nice if the Jacks had been a little more competitive. They were competitive, obviously, against the Huskers.
Through 4 innings against the Devils, too.
Right. Will Bolt didn't do them any favors by throwing their ace against them, but I think he was wise to do that.
Yeah, a lot of Husker fans were questioning that.
Right. And, the Jacks they had enough pitching for about a game and a half.
Exactly.
And it ran out.
3 guys, and it was just off a cliff after that.
Yeah, and that's, some of those guys are better than they showed. I don't want to pick on them in what was probably the lowest moment of their season individually, but some of those guys, they're better than that. To just come in and not even throw a single strike. Like, what's happening? You're a Division I pitcher.
Yeah.
How can you not even throw a strike? But sometimes that happens, and whether it was nerves of being on that stage or maybe the umpire was squeezing them a little bit or, I'm sure it's difficult to want to throw the ball over the plate when everyone in the lineup's hitting 400 with 20 homers, but we all know what happened, 17-0, and that's embarrassing for SDSU. And I thought Rob Bishop handled it appropriately. He didn't throw his players under the bus or say how that was embarrassing or that was ugly. He was just like, hey, bad inning, got away from us, but this was still a great experience. And I think that's the right way to look at it. They like you said, it was 1-0 going into the 5th, and then you have 2 of the worst innings I've ever seen happen back to back. Shit happens sometimes, basically.
Yeah.
But to come away from it and say we got outscored 21-1 in our 2 NCAA tournament games, that's kind of
it is, and you go. If you just break it down into, hey, they're down 2-1 in the 7th to Nebraska, got guys on base, and Huskers are on their heels. I mean, that's deep into the game, and then you're midway through a game against Arizona State, and it's only 1-0. But then you zoom out, and it's 21-1, and okay. This is partly what I talked about yesterday on Happy Hour was this is yesterday I started with the positive. I'm going to start with the negative in running this by you is, well, you just kind of said it. This is the litmus test, the crystal clear division, mid-majors and Power 4. The pitching depth is a whole entire different thing. And then Rob mentioned it as well. Rob actually commented, because I saw the whole 3.5-minute press conference of which you asked every question after the Arizona State game. He more mentioned the hitting. Just, we got to get better offensively if we ever want to play with these guys. They had 8 total hits in 2 games, only 1 extra base hit.
Yeah.
Only 1 run. But it was the pitching depth, I think. It feels like that's the number one thing that kind of separates big boys from the little guys.
You're not wrong, but at the same time, a couple of the pitchers that shit the bed in that game are guys that are supposed to be able to get it done.
You just said it.
Caden Rylance was a pretty good pitcher for him this year, and he came in and couldn't throw a strike. Austin Henry was a decent pitcher this year. He played at Oklahoma, Wichita State. He came in and walked 2 batters on 8 pitches. And clearly, Rob Bishop didn't appreciate it because he gave those guys extremely quick hooks. You walked 2 guys on 8 pitches? You're done. Who's next?
Yeah.
And he was cycling through those guys pretty quick, going through 5 pitchers in 1 inning. Yes, pitching depth is different at Nebraska than it is at South Dakota State, but there were a couple guys that they should be able to count on to give them more than that just didn't on this. And like I said, I'm not trying to crap on those guys. Everyone has a bad day. They had a bad day. But it made for a pretty ugly game. That 1 inning in particular, I mean, they had 9 runs on the board before they'd even got an out.
It was just...
At one point, you're kind of like, oh, my God, like, is this ever going to end?
It was like a couple things. Well, I mean, you've played a lot of baseball in your time, and I'm playing co-ed, very low-level softball. Like I was on a team and playing first base on Sunday and our team's one of the better teams in our league, and we were up 8-0, and we gave up 15 runs in an inning. Our pitcher couldn't.
So SDSU didn't have the worst inning of the weekend.
Well, I was definitely having flashbacks because this was on Sunday to Saturday, and everybody on the field, especially we have a good pitcher. But he was just trying to get too cute, and in some cases, these were the hitters that are going to slap it to shortstop or strike out. You're kind of like, dude, just throw meat and let's get out of here. But I'm not the pitcher. I haven't been hung out to dry like that. I don't pitch, so I'm not going to begin to pretend how sometimes helpless of a feeling that must be to be the person with the ball in your hands. Anyway, it's like watching your kid's little league team. Just give up run after run after run, and you can't do anything as a parent in the stands. And that's the cruelty of baseball, right? Unless there's a run rule for an inning or a mercy rule, of which there's not in college baseball. You have to record a third out. There's no clock that's going to stop to get you out of that, and it was a nightmare. But you asked the right question to the players afterward. Jershely and McDowell, like, how much of a damper does this put on it? And they basically said, not much. In fact, they spinned it forward. This is now we know kind of what it takes, which suggests that maybe a lot of these guys will come back. You wrote in your preview article that there's been a lot of good players from SDSU that have left in the portal in years past.
Yeah, Drew McDowell looked like he was in tears, and he was the guy who was like, this is something to build on. This is something that we need to spin forward. And that's significant that he's the one who said that, because he's the guy that I'm kind of thinking, he looked really good. Yeah. He was throwing 93, 94. He was their best pitcher this year down the stretch. He's only a sophomore. I'm not, trying not to even say it out loud. I don't want to tempt anybody or anything, but he's a guy they need to get back if they're going to make another run. Jershely, their shortstop, he's a freshman. He's really good. He comes from a family that's pro baseball, so there's a lot of good. That is the silver lining or whatever. I mean, Ty Madison was their ace down the stretch. He's gone. Sam Schlecht was, not a world beater this year, but he made a lot of really good starts for him, and I thought he did pretty well against Nebraska on Friday. He kept him in the game. They're going to miss those 2 guys, but for the most part, it's freshmen, sophomores, and juniors that make up this team. And are they all going to be back? No, probably not. But if you can get the majority of them back, because Oral Roberts is going to be awesome again next year. They're awesome every year.
Yes.
And nothing against SDSU, but it was kind of a fluke that they beat them in the tournament this year. Oral Roberts was better than them. So it's not as simple as going, well, if we get everybody back next year or even close to it, we'll be the best team in the league next year. No, not necessarily. Oral Roberts is that good every year. And it's going to come down to that one weekend in the conference tournament, no matter what happens from February through April. But I do think it helps them. I think it gives Rob Bishop a little bit more clout, a little bit more ability to recruit aggressively, to say, okay, I've been here before now. I know what to do here. I'm going to be the coach here. Let's move forward from this. So there's all positives. I really don't think losing 17-0, it just looks bad.
Yes.
It gives other people a chance to kind of make fun of you or whatever, if you're Yotes fans or Bison fans or whatever. But the way Cole Klecker was pitching for Arizona State that day, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have lost 3-0, 4-0. They weren't going to score any runs.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And again, nothing negative really comes out of this, but do we overstate the positive? You just said it about Rob going forward recruiting. Do you think we saw what it did in men's and women's basketball. You get in there, like Mike Dom, I chatted with him yesterday. He said, I said, how'd you end up at South Dakota State? What even interested you about them? And he partly said, my grandfather, I come from a family of Jackrabbit fans, but it was mainly watching them in the NCAA tournament, in the big dance, which if they're not in Division I and in the big dance, then maybe a guy like Mike Dom's it's not on his radar.
Right.
I don't know if it's apples to oranges with baseball or not. Do you think he can get better baseball players just through one regional appearance?
Yeah, I think so. We compare them a lot to schools around here, whether it's North Dakota State or Oral Roberts, or even we've talked about Augustana, how them being so good and just being 50 miles away, does that make it harder? If you're a kid that's choosing between Augie and SDSU, maybe before this, you're I want to go to Augie. They're gonna play for more, and I'm going to get more out of that. But now you see this, you go, that's Division I. They got to play against Arizona State and Ole Miss. They got to go down to Haymarket Park and play on ESPN. Yeah, that seems way cooler than playing Central Missouri on the NSIC network. So, and I don't know how often Augie's actually beating SDSU for baseball recruits anyway, but I definitely think it helps. Now, the difference is the weather factor. And obviously everyone up here deals with that, whether it's North Dakota State, Augustana, USF, SDSU, whoever. I don't think because they got into this tournament and they got to play Nebraska on ESPN Plus, or they got beat 17-0 by Arizona State, that suddenly they're going to get kids from Texas and Louisiana and Georgia to want to come up. No, they're not. Most of their team is made up of guys from Minnesota, Nebraska, and Iowa, and South Dakota,
Probably
and that's
still will be.
Going to continue to be the case. Yeah,
they might just get maybe a better player or two, a difference-making
from
player
those
or
areas.
Two from those areas. As a result of this, and then you hinted at another thing that I mentioned yesterday, is once you've been there and you see it and you feel it, again, when you go back to women's basketball, broke the glass ceiling in 2009, and then they actually went into the NCAA tournament and won their first NCAA tournament game. That was even more amazing that they just did it right off the bat. But anyway, then the men go 3 years later. That's a whole different beast. And then you walk it back to 10 years before that, where there were plenty of South Dakotans, maybe even a majority of Jackrabbit fans who were just like, why are we doing this? Why? So we could maybe get into the NCAA tournament as a pipe dream and see the name on the big dance and never get to compete for a national title again. That was the argument. And then when you experience it happening, you're like, well, of course we did that. That's way better. And in baseball, I don't know. You finally get to experience that. You mentioned going to Lincoln, 8,000 people. It was ESPN Plus, so it's not like a whole entire country. It was one of a zillion games going on.
Right.
But it feels like that experience weighs heavier, rings truer, is the better experience. Nothing against the D2 folks that came before them or Augustana. Then, as you mentioned, going to a super regional in Central Missouri, or even going to North Carolina to play for a D2 national title. That experience.
Yep, and I don't obviously spend nearly as much time around the baseball team as I do the football and basketball teams. I know Rob fairly well, but I don't really know any of the players. I don't cover very many games, and when I do, I'm not, going to practice or getting to know these guys like I do with football and basketball. So this was a different experience to kind of see them in that environment a little more and watch them warm up, watch them interact with each other, watch how they behaved in the dugout during games, all that kind of stuff. And I came away pretty impressed. I think it sure seems like Rob has a culture here, and he talked about it when he was a guest on your podcast about just how these players like each other, how they celebrate each other's successes, how they were a fun group for him to coach. He says that, and you're kind of like, okay, that's what every coach says, right? But you could see it. I think you could really see, like, just something as little as how every time those pitchers came out and they all pitched terrible, just got absolutely rocked or walked everybody. When they came off the mound, the whole team jumped out of the dugout, give them a high five, shake their hands, everything like that. Whether that's, that to me is something that I notice things like that. That tells me that there's a coach that his players are buying into what he's selling, that he has a culture in place that his players are buying into and executing. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that struck me. And just the way, again, hearing them talk after losing both games, about kind of their level-headed sort of approach to, yeah, we're happy to be here. Yeah, this is fun. Yeah, this is a new experience for us. But we think we're a good baseball team. We came here to win games. Yeah. And, Keegan Jersley did admit afterwards, yeah, it does put a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth. Nobody wants to lose 17-0. When I think back to my first trip to the NCAA tournament, yeah, I'm going to remember that we got beat 17-0. But at the same time, this is about more than that. So
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed with what I saw from them in just how they operate, how they go about their business.
Sure.
And I think that speaks highly of Rob as their coach.
But it would be asking any of these players right now, these players, because it's the ultimate example. Like, that's the worst possible outcome. You just generally get lit up and embarrassed by a big-name school. That's a blue blood, Arizona State, 17-0. Would you rather have that as the end of your season or playing for a national title on a smaller stage? I think all these players, you're shaking your head. Like, give us that chance to lose 17-0 every time. This is big time. You want to play at the highest level. Does that compute? Does that, of course, then I spin it to the football, where would you rather would you rather be James Madison and go 14-0, get smothered by Oregon in a college football playoff game, or what the Jackson Yotes are still playing for right now?
And we talk about this stuff all the time, and we have for years. And obviously, when NDSU was still in the Valley, FCS, we always heard about how, you could go play in these meaningless bowl games, or you could go to Fargo or Brookings and play for a national championship. And yes, there were some kids that chose that path. But as much as we talk about those things, any coach would tell you the overwhelming majority of kids always choose the highest level. It doesn't matter what the wins and losses or the facilities or everything. I'm going to play at the highest level I can. And that's true of all sports. I asked Tim Huber about a month ago. We were just BSing because obviously Tim and I are close. And I said, do you actually beat SDSU for recruits in baseball? And he's like, once in a while, but not very often. Usually the kid, all things being equal or not being equal, D1. I mean, especially, it's one thing to go for like FBS or FCS to FBS or NAI to Division II, but D1 is a pretty, going from Division I to Division II, that's always for almost any kid. Because kids are so, narcissistic or tunnel vision or whatever. Like, they also care about what other people think about them. They want to be able to tell people, I'm a Division I baseball player.
Yes.
You can say, I went to Augustana and I won a national championship and I was a 2-time NSIC player of the year. And they're like, is that D1? No, it's D2. Oh. And then some other kid, I was starting shortstop for South Dakota State. We were D1. Yeah. And to a lot of people, that will mean more. I'm not saying that's how they should do it. I'm a fan and a proponent of Division II sports, and I hate it when people look down on Division II sports or NAIA sports or Division III, any level. People don't realize how good you have to be to play any level of college athletics. But having said that, I understand why the overwhelming majority of kids, they want to play at the highest level. Yeah. They want to get the swag. They want to play in the biggest facilities. They want to be on TV. And yes, they want to be able to, 20 years later, tell people, I was a Division I athlete.
Yes, that's it. And sometimes fans don't want the same thing that the players do, but they don't care how it ends. They really, in general, they don't care. Playing for championships is fun if you get on a team good enough to do that. And certainly when peers are competing against each other for recruits, winning still matters a whole lot. But to go to a mediocre FBS program or a championship-level FCS program, it's easy for us to say, you'd rather play for titles in the FCS because the Jackrabbits are awesome and what a program.
Okay, I'm going to take this off in a somewhat philosophical tangent here.
Good. This is what this is for.
When you think about sports, if you really think about it, aren't almost all athletes, or shouldn't they almost, like, it kind of should be, I'm trying to word this the right way. They're always taught to say it's about the team, it's about winning.
Right.
And that's ingrained in you by your coaches when you're young, maybe by your parents, maybe by whoever teaches you how to play the sport. And I'm not suggesting that players don't mean that or whatever, but when you reach a certain level where maybe you can play it, you could earn a college scholarship, or you play it professionally and it's your job. If it's your job, do you care more about winning than your individual performance? Do you really? You're supposed to say that to the media, to the fans. I care about the fans. I care about our team winning. Yeah. Well,
sure I was 0 for 17 from the field today, but we got the dub.
Right. Yeah. That's a lie because you'll lose your job if you keep going 0 for 17 from the field.
Yes.
That's great that the team won, but you didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, even when you're a kid, I can remember being 12 years old and, I went 4 for 4, but we lost. Well, I don't care. I went 4 for 4,
Yeah, right.
And you have to.
I did my part.
You had to suppress that because that was what you were taught.
Yeah.
Or another game like, hey, we won, but I threw 3 interceptions. Yeah, I'm celebrating, but I kind of feel like a dickhead. It wasn't because of me that we won.
Yeah.
And so we hear people like Tucker Kraft and Mason McCormick say that, well, I stayed here because I want to win championships. And I'm not saying they didn't mean it. They did. I know they did because I know those guys. But they were in a unique position to be able to have that outlook on things because they were already so good.
Yeah.
And they knew they were going to be the ones that were going to – it was up to them to win that championship. Yeah. They were already good, For so many other players who are just trying to make it in any sport at any level, you can say, I want to win. I want to go. Do you really? I mean, if you go to SDSU to play football in the early 2020s and you win a national championship, but you were on the bench the whole time, do you like that more than what if I'd have gone to USF and been a 4-year starter and been all conference and
for 8-3 teams.
Yeah. And that's awesome and that's great. And I didn't get to do this, but I played. I was the guy. Because you play sports to play, right? You want to play.
Yes. Most do, yes.
So, I mean, certainly my athletic career is not in that even stratosphere, but I did experience a little bit of that in that when I played amateur baseball in my 20s, I was always on a bad team, and I was always one of the better players. Yeah. And it was nice to know every game when I showed up, I was going to be in the lineup, and if we won, it was probably largely because of me and a couple other guys. It was up to me to if we're going to win, I have to get 3 hits. I have to throw 6 strong innings. If we don't, we lose, whatever. Well, I got tired of losing all the time, and then I just you know what? I'm in my 30s now. I've done everything I'm going to I've peaked. I'm not going to get better. I'm not going to get signed by the Canaries or anything. And when the Renner Monarchs said, hey, you want to come be on our team and very clear, and be on our bench, that's the role we're offering you. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I would love to do that because I'm tired of losing all the time. I'm tired of never getting to go to the state tournament. I had never played in the amateur baseball state tournament until I joined. Well, that's not true. I played with the Roadrunners when I was managing. But a chance to join the Monarchs, which is like joining NDSU or the Yankees or whoever, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And I played fairly often because during the regular season they need guys, but when it got to the games that mattered in the state tournament, I never played, ever. And I was totally okay with that. I wanted to win a championship because I was older. I had already accomplished everything as an individual. Then it was about the team.
But you wouldn't have wanted to spend your whole career on the Monarchs bench.
Exactly. If I'd have done it the other way around, and you saw a lot of guys do that. Yeah. Guys would play for the Monarchs in their 20s, and I get to win a trophy and go through that. But it's I'm sitting here watching Luke Langenfeld and Kalen DeBoer and Brian McGuire, I want to play. Yeah. And then those guys would go maybe to a Class B team or some other team and go, okay, I got a couple medals. Yeah. Now I want to go play.
Yeah. Right. And we're certainly not downsizing the importance of winning because a school like SDSU for women's basketball, for men's basketball, football, the last 10, 15 years, all those sports in general, they're beating most of their peers, at least in their league, for better players. Because they do win a bunch, and players do want to come for a winner, and and better facilities, and better resources, and better fans, which all feeds each other with the winning. They all just kind of keeps going in a cycle. And but yeah, I mean Curtis Riggs will say it all the time. Going through a high school football season like a kid at the start of the year he's committed to or has offers from this D2 school and that D2 school and NAIA. By the end of the season, you got an offer from FCS. Mm-hmm. I mean, where do you think he's eventually going to go if that's his only FCS offer? And that leads into the most recent thing of us as South Dakotans vicariously living life through North Dakotans and North Dakota State fans. I think Jack fans are, Yote fans are, kind of glancing over there. Last week we learned of 9. I don't think you and I talked about this last week because I think it happened after we talked. But stop me if we did. 9 national television games for the Bison next year. Now, they're going to be all mostly on CBS Sports Network and maybe one late night game on Fox, the actual Fox. But that's a game on Fox, for God's sakes. One of the 4 major networks. And there's going to be 5 on CW, which, people would kind of laugh at. But, again, I look at that and go, think of the athlete, think of the fans. That'd be pretty cool.
I don't know. Does the words national TV mean anything anymore?
Fair point.
I mean, and I'm not trying to dismiss
I think it does.
what NDSU's doing, because
I will say yes, but I'll let you go.
well, we all have these goddamn streaming apps now, and so like the Jacks being on ESPN Plus for baseball wasn't really that different, was it? I mean, I know if you're still one of the cable people, then yeah, you were able to watch Texas A&M on ESPN2 and not the Jacks on ESPN Plus. But I think certainly for those of us who follow college football and FCS football, everybody has ESPN Plus now because they want to watch the games when the Jacks are in Youngstown or wherever.
Yeah.
They've been doing it with NDSU. I mean, being on Fox, that's like you said, that's not small potatoes. That's a big deal. I just don't know. I didn't get the sense that moved the needle a ton. I mean, obviously NDSU trolls are going to make a big deal out of it or whatever, and Jacks fans are going to pretend they don't care when they do care, but I just don't know if the whole national TV thing, and part of the reason I say that is because of what we've seen with Summit League basketball and the CBS Sports Network that nobody gets. And it's like, oh, we're on national TV. 75 people are watching this game. Just because it's available all over the world doesn't mean, or wherever. Like, to me, that in the streaming era and just with the different TV media rights deals, national TV just doesn't mean anything to me
It's
anymore.
all a jumble. I think of the game times, though, some of these CBS Sports Network games, these Mountain West games, they're late-night games.
Yep.
Well, there's fewer late-night games. And some people do, some people don't have a network like CBS Sports Network. I always have because I always get the sports packages. I spend a second or two every now and then in sports bars like the Gateway where there's a zillion TVs. One or two of those TVs in sports bars all across America are going to have the Bison on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably it's helpful in recruiting. You think about California, that's a state with how many millions of people? And that's their time zone. That's on when it's 7 to 8 o'clock at night, and there's only that plus a Pac-12 game and a late-night Big 12 game that's out west, like in Arizona or something. You're gonna recruiting-wise, you might tap more into the Western United States.
You
when
might,
you're playing these games.
But honestly, when it comes to
recruiting,
when it comes to the Bison, though,
yeah.
I'm actually a little not worried, but like the Bison already have a national brand.
Yeah,
they are well known because the success they had was so overwhelming.
Yep.
What, like 10 national titles?
Yeah,
in
you
12
do every
years,
year in December. You're going to watch the Bison.
I mean,
in
it was unlike anyone in college football's ever dominated.
Yeah.
And so,
literally,
I don't feel like them being on national TV a few more times. People go, oh, what's this North Dakota State football? Everyone already knows. Yeah. They're already out there. I don't know how much more you can. Much more like you'll there will be more eyeballs on you, but like I said, I think everyone already kind of knows what they're about. Yeah. And I also wonder, and I'm sure Bison fans will call bullshit on this or whatever, but will they lose some of that if they're not winning those national championships all the time? I don't know. I mean, how big a deal is Boise State kind of reached that level as a group of 6 school or whatever that was successful, and in Central Florida or South Florida at one point, and Central Florida,
Scott Frost.
Several of them have, but if you're in New Mexico, say that Jason Eck just had this great year for them, are they a bigger national brand right now than the Bison? I don't think they are. I think a lot more people know about North Dakota State football than the Lobos. Now, granted, they just had one good year out, and the Bison have been doing this for 20 years now, but I think it's possible that the Bison get kind of, lost in the shuffle, so to speak. And I'm not saying that means anything's going to happen to their program. They're going to keep being successful. They're going to be a good team within the Mountain West. I just don't know if making this move up suddenly, puts them in this new stratosphere because they're already there to some degree.
What would take them up a notch is if they actually
go to the
pull
college
the James
football playoff.
Madison and pull the college football playoff. Now,
and I think
how much does that elevate you if you do get throttled by 30 in Oregon or Florida or wherever?
Well, James Madison was just there.
Yeah.
And did I feel like, James Madison is way ahead of where the Bison and the Jacks are? No, not really. Not really.
But are they a bigger national thing? Is that a huge accomplishment?
They're playing
for
on a bigger
school?
stage, no question.
Sure, yeah. But then you get throttled on that. Well, but you get just like Jack's baseball, Arizona State. You get a chance. And the athletes want to do that. I'll put the TV thing in perspective because on that same day, because it was like the TV draft, right? This is everything filtered down, and a lot of games got picked. You know that happens, right? And it filtered on down to The Jacks and the Yotes, they learned that USD is going to play late September at Boise State, 9:30. How excited do you think Yotes fans were for that? For CBS Sports Network, which you just said, let's not get too excited. A lot of people don't have it. They tweeted that out right away. Look at us. We're playing Boise on national TV. Jackrabbits are at Northwestern, which is probably going to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten again this year. And that was a big social media day, 7 o'clock prime time on Big Ten Network against Northwestern. That's going to just get totally lost in the shuffle of a bunch of probably really good September prime time games nationally, Big Ten, SEC, doesn't matter. It's a big deal to us, right? The one time a year that the FCS schools do get to get on national TV, we get pretty excited. Well, they're going to do this 9 times. And then they're going to play each other again on ESPN, ESPN2, or ESPNU. Do you know how many people saw the Jacks Yotes game last year on ESPNU? About 80,000.
That's not very many.
Which would be like 1/10 the audience Nebraska and Northwestern get when they play each other at 11 a.m. on BTN. But we get excited because we know, hey, it's on a national television carrier. Or do we? Do I overestimate how excited fan bases get?
I like I said, I think in this post-cable era, and again, I don't know how many people really are not on cable anymore, but I just don't know. They played the Jacks and Yotes both have played on ABC on network TV. That was a big deal, but how big it is? Like, okay, this is awesome, and then a week later, it's
Yeah. All right. So, any developments now or coming up that you got in the works for Jacks football coverage as we ramp up?
I just talked
88 days from kickoff.
I talked to Dan today for about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And the conversation was just kind of like, what's going on with you? No, not much. Not much. This is the closest thing that he has to a downtime, and he's very busy still. Yeah. Like it took him a day to get back to me, just because he's always on. Right. It's recruiting or just getting ready for the season. You had Kalen DeBoer on last week, and he's like, yeah, I got these little windows of time where I can take an hour here and there, but then it's back to going to hobnob with boosters or go to a golf thing or whatever he's doing. And it's exactly the same for Dan, just on a slightly smaller scale. But we were talking just about they had to release a few guys on the roster because they got to get down to 105. So we were talking a little bit about that, and there was nothing controversial about any of it. Just they're getting down to 105, and they're coming back on July 29th is when they report for camp. July 30th is the day of their first practice. He said the freshmen were kind of rolling in now, getting moved in so they can get right to work for the sort of players-only players-led practices that they have. But yeah, he was like, so what else? What else is going on? I was like, nothing. I'll talk to you after the 4th of July. And I was like, all right,
there we go.
And then after the 4th of July, it's basically like, boom, here it is. It's football season.
Yeah,
so,
on and on and on we go. Yeah, July. Did we have media? Yeah, we had MVFC media days, I think, in July last year.
Yeah.
Any takeaways, big takeaways from the Kalen DeBoer, Curtis Riggs happy hour conversation?
It was a good listen. I listened to it. I was driving down to Lincoln on Friday, and the first few minutes seemed a little awkward, like you were trying to direct traffic a little bit. But once the two of them kind of got comfortable, it was very clear to sort of see that how much they have remained close friends, how much neither one of them has really changed, especially Kalen. I think Curtis has changed a little bit. You guys joked a little bit about what a psychopath he was, basically, as a young athlete, and he has mellowed a little bit over the years, and I mean that in a good way.
Yes.
But Kalen's kind of buttoned up, and I don't mean that as a criticism. He has to be. Yeah. He's the head coach of the freaking Alabama Crimson Tide, and it was nice to hear him kind of relax a little bit and just talk about his life, his job, his history with Curtis, and I always enjoy hearing him talk about USF and hearing him talk about Bob Young and his former coaches and his former players, because those names rattle right out of his mouth like it was yesterday. Yeah. And like those kids mean just as much to him as Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe. I mean, and it's because they do. That's always there are people who have taken a similar path to Kalen, where they started somewhere really small and ended up somewhere really big. And a lot of times they don't want to talk about that path. They don't want to talk about the small beginnings because sometimes they think it makes them look small time, or that they've risen above that. And, I'm so glad I put that, Little League shit behind me. Kalen has never been like that. And that's one of the things I've always really admired about him, is he doesn't think like, I'm better than you guys now because I'm at Alabama. Yeah. He's like, I wouldn't be at Alabama if it wasn't for USF, if it wasn't for Bob Young, if it wasn't for Kalen or Curtis Riggs, for Willie Sanchez, all those people. So I never get tired of listening to him and Curtis talk about the glory days, because I was there, and it was pretty great.
Yeah, well, and there's two sets of glory days when they played together for Bob Young,
which I wasn't there for as much. I mean, I even as a teenager, I read the Argus Leader every day, so they
had stories about that. Yeah. I got a kick. I mean, what I thought I could have done better, I just figure everybody knows, but not everybody knows just how gaudy of stats they put up, how prolific.
Especially Curtis. Yeah.
Curtis threw 55 touchdown passes.
And I think 3 interceptions, I think.
Yeah, that's even more amazing. But 55 touchdown passes in 14 games, that is more than 4 a game. In fact, that's almost, it's not almost 5 a game. It's almost 4.
4 a game,
it's right
exactly,
about 4
almost.
a game.
Yeah. Good math, John.
Curtis, Nebraska, N stands for knowledge. The N on the helmet stands for knowledge. Kalen caught 33 of the 55. 33 touchdown receptions.
In 1 year?
Yes.
I don't think that's right.
I'll go back and look it up for you, but I think he caught 33 of the 55.
No, because I think Dusty Havorka might have broke his record. But
okay.
Anyway,
they were incredible together, and I loved how Kalen mentioned how Curtis basically got to be Peyton Manning. He just called the offense. I mean, they called plays, but there were so many plays within the plays that he could run. He can audible anytime. He had the green light because he knew what he was doing, and he said it was never the audible was never a pass to a run.
Right.
That was never going to happen. And if David Reuter, the running back, didn't on 1st and 10 from the 15 didn't score a 15-yard touchdown, there's no way he was going to eventually score. They're just going to keep throwing to the end zone. I asked Kalen the questions, and I got the answers I guess you'd expect, but just wanted to confirm it because ever since Kalen became a head coach now at the FBS level, starting with Fresno State, then to Washington and Alabama, we've all been wondering, is Curtis ever going to join him? Are they ever going to reunite? Especially when the Curtis was done with the Sioux Falls Storm a few years ago. And it hasn't happened yet. And Curtis is if you ask Curtis, he'll give you the same answer. But Kalen finally said it. Yeah, I've wanted it to happen. I've wanted to hire Curtis Riggs. It just hasn't lined up, and it's about the timing of whatever Curtis is doing with his life and his job. This academy is a big deal to him. And oh, by the way, I'm very curious to see how Curtis turns this summer of calling IFL games. He's going to do 32 of them. Into something more in his broadcasting career, because he's traveling all over the country now doing that. They've finally discovered what we've known for several years, just how good he is at that, and unusually, uniquely candid and all that. And he also said it just depends on the role. I mean, I think we all understand. I asked Kalen, could Curtis Riggs call a Big 10 or SEC offense right now? And of course he said yes, but I think he means it. I think we think Curtis could.
Well,
but he's not going to get hired.
Alabama would not let him hire an indoor football coach who hasn't even coached for the last 3 years.
Exactly.
Come in and be his offensive coordinator.
And that's, of course, what Kalen meant.
And they both know that.
Yes.
Selfishly,
consultant, quality control, whatever.
As a friend of Kalen and Curtis's, and someone who has become a fan of Alabama because of them, I want Curtis to join that staff because I think he would be a great addition for his football knowledge, certainly, but I think he'd be great for Kalen. Yeah. We know that job is stressful. That job comes with a ton of pressure, and we know what kind of personality Kalen is, and we know what kind of personality Curtis is. And Kalen talked about this on your podcast, that one of the reasons that Curtis is so great for him to talk to is because he's not involved. And he can give him this sort of unbiased, hold up the mirror, like, here's what I see. Yeah. Now, if he becomes in it, then he's in it too, so you lose a little bit of that impartiality. But we also know what Curtis Riggs is like as a person and as a football coach. Yeah. And I saw it really up close all those years I covered the Storm. Curtis is incredibly knowledgeable. He's very savvy as far as just X's and O's, talent evaluation, reacting on the fly, because it's one thing to come into a game with a game plan, but then when things start getting hairy and you have to make adjustments, he's very, very good at all those things. But then the other thing he has is he's such a son of a bitch,
Yep.
And I mean that in the best possible way, and he knows that he's so competitive, and he's so, because of the fact that he's so competitive, he stays focused on the final destination, the final goal. And he's not worried about if he pisses somebody off or, well, I have to worry about this guy's feelings or, am I going to be... No, he is going to be blunt and direct and cut right to the bone and say, here's the problem, here's how we need to fix it. And I'm not saying Kalen doesn't know how to do any of those things himself or anything like that. But I've said a few times in some other different places, like, whatever role Curtis had, like you said, offensive analyst, quality control, quarterback's coach, whatever it would be, he could kind of act as sort of Kalen's consigliere is the word I've used a couple times. Like, just a guy to come in there and say, hey, wait a minute. I think that's a dumb idea. Don't do that. Yeah. Hey, do this, because they have such a, you could hear it, the way those two guys still talk to each other, the way they talk about each other. There's such a trust there. Yeah. That I just think, not that Kalen needs Curtis, that he can't do it without him.
Yeah,
but
Ryan Grubb doesn't need him, because Ryan Grubb's very good.
Right, but yes. I just think he would be a terrific addition to that staff.
For sure. Moving on, okay, I'll just ask you, did you get a chance to catch any of the Mike Dahm?
Not yet. I just saw that you did it today.
Okay, yeah. We encouraged, since some only, sometimes a lot of...
It's been a few years since I've caught up with Mike, and I've been thinking about it, so I'm glad you did. I haven't talked to him in probably 5 years.
Yeah, well, so what and Cordell can chime in with a head nod or something like that. Like, a big purpose of tracking these guys down, especially if they've been living overseas, and they're 7 years removed from their career at SDSU. It's been a while since anybody's heard from him. And you want to play the hits. Of course, I'm going to talk about the Michael Orris shots, the big wins, the titles, whatever. 51 points against Fort Wayne and why he chose all that. But a bulk of the conversation was catching up on the last 7 years, and not just traveling overseas and playing in Spain, Italy, Turkey. We didn't really get into those. Japan he talked a lot about because that's where he's at now, and he loves it there. But how he met his wife, I don't want to give it away. It's really funny to hear the courtship of his wife. It's a very modern day type of courtship, and he's just and I felt about a half hour in, we're having a good time, and he's just the easiest guy to talk to. But well, what are you gonna do if basketball doesn't work out? Again, I'll let you listen to it.
I mean, it's working out, isn't it? I mean,
I'm sorry if it doesn't. When you're done, and again, you can listen to the answer.
Because I think he's making a pretty good living. I mean, I know he's not making millions.
He actually, to a certain extent, kind of gave us an idea of what he makes, right, Cordell? I asked him, how much you don't have to give us the exact dollar amount. He loves it, though. I mean, he is not. We chatted with Matt Mooney a year ago, and you got the sense that Matt was getting really tired of, traveling all over playing basketball, and it's just a drag.
Yep.
Not Mike. Sometimes it depends on luck and who your agent is and all that stuff. And Mike really seems to like it. So.
Well, it's also probably part of his personality.
Yes.
I mean, Mike's one of the all-time dudes I've ever met.
Yes, he is.
Just a guy who, you hear this cliche thrown around a lot, but in Mike's case, it's true. Guy's never had a bad day.
I know.
You know, I mean, he is loving his life, and he's one of the kindest, friendliest, most energetic, genuine people I've ever met. I absolutely loved covering his basketball games. We had a little bit of a relationship outside of basketball, just in that, I was around him every day for 4 years, and he was so good to me that I always tried to return the favor. And like I said, it's been we actually got married on the same day.
Oh, wow.
And that would have been 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So we exchanged texts that day. Hey, congratulations. Hey, congratulations. That was the last time I've really had any interaction with him. But one of the things I remember most about Mike, to kind of affirm, am I wrong? Because sometimes in the media, they kiss your ass because you're in a position to make them look good, is this guy really a great guy, or is he just being nice to me so I'll write nice things about him in the paper, that kind of thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine who is a USD fan, and a USD fan that hates SDSU, is really into the rivalry, and I hate it when they do, and he made a comment to me after the Jacks had beat the Yotes. He was he's like, I'm so tired of the Jacks beating us all the time. but he's like, it makes me feel a little bit better knowing what an awesome dude Mike Daum is. And I was like, yeah? And he goes, yeah. He's like, I've actually been at games and seen him interact with fans and interact with kids. And he's like, I kind of made up my mind that I'm going to root for that guy. Like, I'm not going to root for the Jacks, but he's a genuinely good dude, and I just wish nothing but good things for him. And when I heard that from a Yotes fan who hates the Jackrabbits, it's kind of like, okay, like, he's sincere. This is really the kind of – he is who I thought he was, you know.
Yeah. And according to Michael Orris, another good dude, who you only got to cover he was only at SDSU for a year, but Dom's a prankster. And so Mike got into some pranks he pulled. So encourage that. Happy hour chat with Mike Daum from yesterday. He is, I'll reveal this. He's still kind of bitter he didn't get a shot at the NBA.
I am too. I thought he deserved – when you're that – good at the college level.
It was bad timing. He was kind of hurt during the whole process. You're trying to impress scouts.
He was getting advice, he was getting pulled in every different direction. Yeah. You know, you need to lose weight so you can get quicker. Well, you lose weight quicker. Well, now you're too much. You're not strong enough to play in the post, and you don't play good enough defense. You don't rebound enough. You don't. Like, someone just give him the guy averaged 26 points and 12 rebounds a game as a senior in Division I. I know it was the Summit League, but still, like, when you see how NBA teams have these 15-man rosters where the last 5 guys never play anyway, like, it just always seems silly to me that someone didn't give him at least a cup of coffee.
And by the way, back to that whole winning thing, winning at a lower level versus whatever it is, more prestige, and now in college sports' case, more money at a higher level. Would he have stayed at SDSU 4 years in the portal era? You'll get the answer if you listen to it, but you won't be surprised by the answer.
Well,
but
the portal existed.
He's super glad it turned. He is proud to be.
He had an opportunity to transfer. Just there was no money.
The graduate transfer. He could have, but that would have been purely for the prestige.
Right.
And good for him for staying and authoring one last chapter with the Jacks.
He might have second thoughts about that, because maybe if he'd have gone to Nebraska and averaged 17 points a game, he would have got a shot in the NBA. I don't know.
Yeah, but life's, again, doesn't have a bad day. Life's turned out okay. He's gotten to live in some of the most beautiful places in the world and still plays basketball for a living. How scale of 1 to 10, how intriguing is this NBA Finals for you? Spurs Knicks.
Scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
6, 7.
Or you can weigh it compared to. Oh, nice.
You have to show that clip to Arthur.
Nice
He'll be
job.
very proud of me.
Nice job. I'm impressed.
I don't know how much I'm going to watch.
I wasn't even setting you up. I don't know how, game 1's tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday. It's going to be a really nice night, and I like to be outside when it's really nice outside.
Arthur's got a game tonight, so.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. That's the poll for me is, and the Canaries are on the road. But I think I'll say for me it's more than most years. I'm not, I'm a casual at best NBA fan. If the Wolves aren't, I didn't watch a second. I hate to say this. I checked in a couple times. I thought I'd be interested in the Spurs OKC because these are the teams that ousted the Wolves the last 2 years. Didn't care. There's something about the finals that every year that makes me want to tune in. It's the NBA Finals. I mean, I grew up watching Magic versus Bird, Magic versus Jordan, Magic versus Isaiah, and then all the Bulls teams. And so it's kind of it's ingrained in you. Like, at least watch the finals. But there's been some years where I haven't watched hardly any. Like, I barely watched a second last year. OKC Indy. Spurs Knicks does a little bit of it for me, and mostly because of Wemby and because of the Knicks. Yes, there's an allure for me that there's going to be some games in Madison Square Garden, and that's a franchise that hasn't won an NBA title in 56 years. You? Nah.
I haven't watched an NBA Finals like every game since I was a teenager.
Every
probably.
game for me is probably the same way. Okay. Does Wemby excite you at all?
Not really.
Interesting, because
he's good.
Like, hey, we're watching the future here.
I don't know.
Okay. Good enough. Hey, I had one Twins idea that I heard. That Joe Mays' stock is never going to be higher, and if they're just kind of floundering and not
Joe Ryan.
Did I say Joe Mays?
You said Joe Mays. He was on the.
Who was Joe Mays?
Joe Mays pitched for the Twins in early aughts.
That's Willie Mays Hayes. Joe Ryan. He's pitching great. He was really good last year. Value might never be higher.
I'd trade him.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the Twins can't I don't know if it's bad luck or they're doing something wrong in how they're teaching their pitchers or how they're training, but like he's just going to get hurt anyway.
Yeah.
Trade him before he blows out his elbow.
Yes. Yes, and definitely do it, before the trade deadline, because then it will be too late if you don't.
But it's hard to do that because teams really don't want to start making offers till they have to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're not. I'm not saying now. I mean, we've got a month. We got a trade deadline in late July.
July 31st.
July 31st. Okay. Well, we'll keep watching that. Anything for people to get titillated about it at Sioux Falls Live?
I got some things in the works, mostly football related, because we got through spring season, and it's funny. I was looking at the Sioux Falls Live sports page today, and just scrolling down over the coverage of the last few weeks, and baseball, softball, a little bit of track.
It's been good for this show too. Trust me.
But it's kind of nice, When I was at my previous employer, there was always like, oh, I don't want to do that, and
They didn't want to do the little sports?
Well,
quote unquote,
they didn't want to do
sports?
anything, basically,
Okay.
which is why they're not doing anything now.
Yeah.
But it's just, when I tell people about why they should subscribe to Sioux Falls Live or why they should consume our content, because I'm not a big self-promoting, like, subscribe. I'm not that I get it. No one wants to hear your sales pitch these days. But when I tell people, like, what we do and why I think we're good at it is, like, just go look at our page and look at all the stuff we're covering. Stampede hockey, Augie softball, Augie baseball, SDSU baseball, USD softball,
state track,
spring football, state track. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we're getting to all of it, and I like doing that. I don't want to be a guy who's like, I do this. I'm the SDSU beat writer, or I'm the hockey guy, or I'm this guy. No, like, there's a ton of cool shit going on, and I want to be a part of all of it.
And cool personalities to cover and talk to as well, which is why this show exists. And by the way, it is election night, so Patrick Lally is, and I'm guessing Hunter Dunstman, they're on it tonight and into tomorrow with all the coverage of what's going on, with big decisions being made by voters that will affect things going on right here in our little corner of the world for years to come. So I think tomorrow we're going to have a little post-election special with Patrick Lally. We'll go lally-gagging. Did you vote? You going to vote? No.
None of your business.
Okay. Cordell has his sticker on. For video producer Cordell Wright, for Matt Zimmer, enjoy your trip to the Twin Cities this weekend. Splash around there at Valley Fair. Happy hour from the Gateway Lounge. Cheers.
Why are you laughing?
That was a terrible outro.
You.
You guys need another round of drinks?
Yes.